Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. After my last video about how much I make and spend, a ton of you guys have been asking me about my investments, so I thought it'd be both fun and informational to break down my investment portfolio progression to see how I've been performing year after year. I'm being super transparent here and showing you what I was putting my money into, the wins, the losses, and honestly some pretty questionable decisions I made along the way. Quick disclaimer though, this is not financial advice. I'm literally just a 23-year-old software engineer who's still figuring this stuff out, so don't roast me too hard. I also didn't make this video to flex. If anything, I would want you guys to use this as inspiration to see what's achievable for someone in their early 20s working as a corporate worker in tech. Before we dive in though, let me give you guys some context about myself. I grew up in an immigrant household where neither of my parents invest or even know about stocks or crypto at all. Everything I know about investing, I've had to self-learn, mostly through Reddit and YouTube. Okay, now with that being said, let's get to the fun part. So the fourth quarter of 2020 was when I really started getting into this stuff, since it was around the time the COVID pandemic hit and I was quarantined at home with nothing better to do. I was chronically on subreddits like personal finance and stocks, and that's actually how I found out about Roth IRAs. I opened up a Charles Schwab Roth IRA and maxed it out with $6,000. I initially put 50% of that into an index fund, VTI, and the rest into a bunch of random tech stocks like Apple and AMD. By the end of 2020, my Roth IRA was sitting at $6,244, which was roughly a 4% ROI, which is not bad considering I started late in September of that year. I also had an E-Trade individual account where I put in $1,500, and that grew to about $2,457 by the end of that year. This is where I was doing more of my risky stock picks and also got into options trading. I had a few highs but way more lows, and it honestly got to a point where it was just pure gambling. My crypto was also sitting at $3,586 by the end of the year, making my total portfolio come out to be $12,288. I would say 2021 was pretty wild, but not in the way I expected. Even though everything in the stock market was going up, I actually ended with a net loss because I got completely burned playing with growth stocks. My Roth IRA was at $10,744 after contributing another $6,000, but here's where it gets painful. I bought 50 shares of Palantir for $26 per share and 1 share of MicroStrategy for around $1K. These two stocks alone brought me a total net loss of nearly $1,000. At the time, I genuinely thought I had played myself. Little did I know that later on these would be some of my biggest gainers. This was also peak options trading for me. I was making some decent money but losing way more. Eventually I stopped after realizing I was just throwing money away and basically gambling at that point. My E-Trade account also grew to $2,806 without adding any new money, and my crypto grew to $4,909, which helped offset some of my stock losses. My total portfolio worth at the end of the year was $18,460, and my Roth IRA performance, even though I invested a total of $12,000, my account value only sat at $10,744, which means I was down about $1,256 or about negative 10.5% ROI. That definitely hurt a bit, especially during a bull market when everyone else seemed to be making money. I would say 2022 was even more brutal and by far my most horrendous year. Everything absolutely crashed, and I honestly just stopped looking at my accounts altogether. I stopped actively checking if I was up or down because I knew it wasn't going to be any good news. I remember being genuinely shocked that my portfolio was red literally every single day for like a whole month straight. Even though I made my yearly contribution to my Roth IRA, it still dropped to $10,450, but I did make some moves that would pay off later. I bought 70 more shares of Palantir at $6.42 and 2 shares of Nvidia at $142. I also bought some more POTR in a TD Ameritrade account at $31.56, which was honestly not great timing. I forgot the exact reason why I was so heavily invested in POTR at the time, but I just simply believed in the company. My E-Trade account also dropped to $1,036, but my crypto actually grew to $6,346, making my total portfolio come out to be $18,006 by the end of that year. My Roth IRA performance that year was honestly laughable, with a total invested of $18,000 and my account value only sitting at $10,450, which means I'm down roughly $7,550 or about negative 42% ROI. Yeah, this year was definitely rough and it still gives me PTSD to this day. As a software engineer, I'm always thinking about side projects, but honestly setting up hosting and dealing with deployment has always been such a pain. That's why I'm excited to tell you guys about today's sponsor, Hosting Your Horizons. Hosting Your Horizons is this AI-powered website creator that lets you build fully functional web applications just by describing what you want. I recently used it to create my personal portfolio website, and all I had to do was type in what I wanted and the AI generated the entire site for me. Here, I intentionally kept the prompt pretty simple to demonstrate how capable Hosting Your Horizons is, even with minimal input. What's crazy is how easy it is to refine everything. You can literally chat with the AI to make changes in real time, like make the design more modern, and it updates instantly. It's an all-in-one solution, so you manage hosting, domains, and email in one place. They also have e-commerce features, so you can create an online store in seconds if that's what you need. Then you just hit the publish button and you're live. No complicated deployment, nothing. Plus they have a 24/7 expert support and a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's risk-free. If you've been sitting on an idea for a website or web application, go try it out with Hosting or Horizons and use my code PhilipChi to get 10% off your first month. Link is in the description below. Alright, now back to losing money. 2023 was straight recovery mode, but I was still pretty scared from the series of unfortunate events that happened in the year prior. High yield saving accounts were paying 4.5 to 5% at the time, so I was keeping a lot of cash in Wealthfront, earning that guaranteed return instead of investing more aggressively. This was also the first year I experienced when they increased the max contribution limit for Roth IRAs from $6,000 to $6,500, and after maxing it out and just dumping it all into VTI, my Roth IRA bounced back to $24,357. My TD Ameritrade also merged with Schwab, so all my PLTR shares went over there. I didn't really actively trade on my E-Trade account anymore, but it still grew to $2,126. My crypto was also relatively the same at around $6,520. My total portfolio by the end of 2023 came out to $33,004. With a total of $24,500 invested in my Roth IRA, the value was pretty much at break even or down about $143 to be exact, which I take any day over last year. 2024 was when things actually started to take a turn because this was my first real big boy job working at Amazon. I also transferred all my investments to Robinhood for the 3% transfer bonus because free money is free money, and it also made it easier to keep track of everything in a centralized account. The contribution limit for Roth IRAs increased yet again by $500, and after maxing it out this year, my account balance hit $46,219 by the end of the year. My individual trading account was also at $6,052. Some of the highlights in this year was MSTR and Nvidia going up like crazy, and doing a 10-to-1 stock split, which pretty much meant for every 1 share I owned, I received 10 shares in return. I also began heavily investing into crypto, putting in a total of $63,043, with the majority of that going into Ethereum and the rest spread across XRP, Bitcoin, and a little bit of Doge. I also started contributing to my company 401k to get that 2% match and ended up maxing it out, which brought it to $24,891. Additionally, I opened up an HSA which hit $2,716. In my 401k, I simply just put it into Vanguard's index fund that tracks the S&P 500, and FXAIX in my HSA, which is Fidelity's index fund that tracks the S&P 500. In the end, my total portfolio worth was $142,922. For my Roth IRA performance, I invested a total of $31,500 by this time, and my account value sat at $46,219, which finally brings me back to a positive $14,719, or about 47% ROI. Flash forward to 2025 and my Roth IRA is now sitting at $64,430 after maxing it out again. I bought and sold a bunch of my crypto throughout the year, so it's pulled back to $28,408, but my individual account expanded to $110,884, which a big chunk of that is in YieldMax fund shares. This year, POTR finally took off, and I'm currently up 580% on it alone. I'm so glad I diamond-handed these shares from way back then. This year, I also learned about covered calls and cash-secured puts and started experimenting with some of those strategies. I've actually made some decent money from it, so if you guys want to know more about that or YieldMax funds specifically, let me know in the comments below. If you watched my salary and spending video, then you know I front-load my 401k, so it's already maxed out and sitting at $54,922. A lot of people in my last video asked why I front-load instead of dollar cost averaging, and historically it tends to give you a higher ROI year over year. My HSA is at $5,318. I also opened up a small Robinhood managed account with $1,000 just to see how the robo-advisor performs compared to my own picks. It's been almost 3 months now and it's up 9% at $1,090, so not too shabby. I might throw in some more money in there just to see how it does long term. With all of these investments combined, my portfolio sits at a grand total of $265,052. My Roth IRA performance specifically, I invested a total of $38,500 and my account value is at $64,430, which means it's up $25,930 or about 67% ROI. The biggest lesson I've learned throughout these 5 years of investing is that consistency and time in the market beats timing the market. Those early bets on Nvidia and POTR that seemed risky at the time ended up being some of my best decisions. Not panicking in 2022 and just forgetting about my accounts actually helped me avoid making any emotional moves and selling the moment things started looking a bit rough. Having a high income from Amazon definitely accelerated things, but the foundation was built during those early years when I was just putting in small amounts consistently. And that's pretty much my investment journey so far at 23 years old. I still keep a decent amount of cash sitting in a high-yield savings account in the case of a rainy day or a few rainy days. I hope this was helpful or maybe inspire some of you to start investing if you haven't already. I'm definitely still learning and have a long way to go, so don't roast me too hard in the comments, but if you do have any suggestions for improving my portfolio or think I'm doing something completely wrong, definitely let me know. And if you want a video breaking down exactly what I'm invested in within each account or want me to dive deeper into any specific strategies I mentioned, just let me know in the comments comments below too, and I'll try to respond to every single one. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.